chapter 11. Pip was indeed a nice name, and he was the bastard of one of the nobles of Aragon, and since his mistress was an exiled elf, Pip did not have a family name, nor did his mother use her family name either. And since for the record people needed a last name for birth certificate, Pip was given the last name Aragon, which was where he hailed from. People with irregular births just had the last name or where they came from. Pip has shown himself rather useful because he has helped merchant caravans in the past. And back in Aragon, he had been accused of a crime he did not commit, and it was said to one of the merchants' testimony that he avoided losing more than just his nails. They grew back eventually, but during the in-between period, it was rather painful to try to do anything with his hands. "Thank you, Pip," said Kay, bowing. Chalon did a courtesy to show his appreciation for Pip's aid. Pip smiled when he noted the gender swap of the vows. After the show of courtesy, Chalon and Kay started on their way back. Time 22:49. The night air was rather cold and somewhat crisp, and the sky did not have a single cloud. This allowed for all of the celestial bodies to be shown in their full splendor. In spite of all the moons in the sky, there was not a lot of study on astronomy, and the locals did not wish upon a star, nor did they do anything astrology related. It was almost as if the people subconsciously knew the truth. And despite knowing the nature of the sky, Chalon found it interesting to stare at the night sky from time to time, and he was staring at it while his feet were on autopilot, and they already had the coordinates to the workhouse, so his path did not require any forethought. Kay noticed that Chalon was staring at the sky, and curious she asked, "Is there a dragon up there or something?" Chalon shook his head in response. "Then what is so interesting up there?" asked Kay, giving a disinteresting stare outwards before focusing on the path that lay ahead. And there was quite a number of people roaming the streets at night. Among them was Ace, who bumped into Chalon. Chalon could have avoided him, but Ace was going at a particularly quick pace, and finally Ace said, "Watch where you're going." Chalon did not say anything, rather he moved aside and opened an imaginary door. And he then held it open to gesture for Ace to go inside. Ace muttered, "Mines are such a bother." And when Ace did pass, Chalon took this moment to treat him with his foot, and Ace gave a couple of steps till he regained his balance. And he guessed what Chalon had done, and he turned around to protest, but Chalon and Kay were nowhere to be seen. They had dashed behind a nearby stairs that led up a flat, and as soon as Ace left, Chalon and Kay continued on their path. Kay said to Chalon, "That was a bit childish indeed." Chalon shrugged his shoulders in response. "Why did you trace him?" asked Kay. Chalon brought out his board, and then he double underlined an imaginary word. And Kay was used to this type of response since she knew what it meant. "I suppose it doesn't really matter, does it?" said Kay more to herself. And the streetlights by now were lit, and still close to the workhouse there was a couple that required lighting. And the lighting of the street lamps was a government paid job, and overall society employed 20 fellows for this job, and they all had to be done with their job before dusk had fully settled. And since this street corner was still getting lit, it seemed like the fellow doing his job was a trainee. And with practice, this simple task could be done with swiftness and efficiency. When Chalon and Kay reached the red workhouse, it became obvious why the fellow was taking so long. He was going very slowly from light to light in this area, and he was curious about the scenes that he had saw through the open windows. And since the night was rather cool, the windows were open to let in the night air, and this made going to sleep somewhat easier. On the surface, the workhouse was just like any other brothel, and the other ladies by the clear glass windows enticed patrons to enter, and there was a bouncer and the head matron. And the ladies and gentlemen had the right to refuse patrons they found unsavory, and they could spend entire nights not doing anything or anyone in particular. Society's brothels differed somewhat with their play approach, and there was a stage and there was public performance with a general theme. And this night's theme was the birds. And the males sported fancy plumages while the maidens were in duller dresses, and the males had to perform to impress the maidens. Following the bird theme, the performance included dancing, singing, and others would offer gifts. Chalon frowned a little as he saw the ladies waving at him from outside the window, and he wrote to Kay, "Is finding out who injured your brother really worth all of this trouble?" "And what's the matter? You scared or something?" asked Kay, laughing. Chalon shook his head, and in the end he decided to bite the bullet, and he said there was no escape from what God had ordained for him. And this was indeed the place Jay had desired to take him, and why of all of the hellholes did it have to be the workhouse of murderers? On the whole, these workhouse had a larger male than female population, and most of them had murdered their wives out of a fit of jealousy. Now they were dressed like their wives, trying to entice male patrons to be with them. And why did they put up with this thing? Well, do not forget that the alternative was to work in the mines, and lazy people would do anything with everything to avoid doing any actual work. Then again, these types of individuals who usually worked over extra hard in the mines to coerce them to return to the workhouses. The bouncer saw Chalon and Kay lingering out in the gates, and he came near them and said, "Shoo, get out of here." "Sorry, sir, but we need to get inside," insisted Kay. "This is no place for crazy people." "Shoo, shoo," said the bouncer, and he added, "Or do you want me to call the guards?" "Sir, we are not crazy people," said Kay. We were sent by Pip. He said to us for Hanina," wrote Chalon for Kay. "Ah, that's right, Hanina. We know Hanina," said Kay. "Why didn't you not say so before?" said the bouncer, opening the gates. "Come in, come in." The bouncer was not wearing an armor, although he didn't need it. He had twice the bulk of a normal man and almost twice the height. At 6'11", he towered above the average fellow like a mountain, and it was said that his fists were strong enough to punch right through armors, and he was known as the Bull, though his real name was Incitatus Rex Loyola, and he was of a noble family of torturers, and he was serving as a bouncer in the workhouse because he was not too keen in following his father's footsteps, and for good reason. So, like, he was either a bouncer or he joined the family business, which is, like, to torture people. Like our folks, we did not see the point of mortifying the flesh as a type of punishment. The inmates learned nothing, and society as a whole did not benefit from it. Forced labor is another story, and what the workhouse was doing is interesting, if I do say so myself. Anyhow, Bull had acquired the nickname when he was little, and the name was given to him by his little sister, who used to ride him like a bull with a whip and everything. And since she was a little girl, she was allowed to torment him, and he was supposed to put up with it. It was around that time when he started to meditate on the nature of his family work, and if he accomplished anything by putting up with his sister's torment. And the long story short was that he left home at the age of 12, and he went to live with a weird uncle in society. And Bull opened the door for Kay and Chalon, and by now the street light in front of the entrance had been lit. And he looked at Chalon from head to toe, and he raised an eyebrow, and he said, "Are you certain you're not crazy people?" "I am certain of myself, but I have my doubts about him," said Kay, pointing at Chalon with her thumb. "You are certainly dressed like weirdos, and do you buy your own clothing or do you make them?" asked Bull. Chalon wrote, "I make them." "And what's with the board? Are you mute or are you pretending to be silent to gain odds for your cult?" asked Bull. "I do not have a cult, nor do I belong one," wrote Chalon. "Is Hanina like a password or something?" asked Kay. "She is a person, but she's not here today." "And have you been to a workhouse before?" asked Bull. "No," said Kay. Chalon sat a moment and then decided to shake his head in response. "Well, I would love to give you a proper tour, but I have to man the door, and I can't have people sneaking in or escaping, can I?" said Bull. And then he added, handing a little pamphlet to Kay, "This should tell you all you need to know, so have fun and always pay for things up front, and with a guard always as a witness. This is, after all, the workhouse of murderers." "I see," said Kay, coming to sit beneath the swing to read the pamphlet. And Kay started reading the pamphlet under her breath, and when she concluded, she handed it to Chalon, who placed it inside his robes without reading it. "And let's just wander about to see if we recognize the maiden," said Kay. And it was then when Chalon got a report from one of our observers, and he wrote, "The person we are looking for is called Lydia, though her stage name is Holly, like the flower." Kay narrowed her eyes as she pondered how Chalon knew this, and it was not the first time Chalon exhibited random bursts of insight, and it was certainly did not have to be the last. This was certainly not going to be the last, and we had to say in this matter. And according to our records, Holly had murdered her husband because she did not want to sleep with him. And instead of talking things out like a normal person, she faint-headed till she got enough poison to kill the fellow. The man was not unreasonable. In fact, he had wetted her to hide the fact that he had other inclinations. And she would have gotten away with it too, but we tipped off the proper authority. So, like, there was really no need to, like, for her to murder her husband. He was only asking to sleep with her because society demanded Handy, but he had no intention of ever, like, so she just murdered him for, like, not having a normal conversation, for assuming the worst. After a 4-hour interrogation, she confessed and was sent to the mines. She had only been in the warehouse for at least a month, and Chalon kept this information to himself. He knew that if Kay was informed, she was likely to kill Holly, and this would not serve any purpose in the grand scheme of things, and he thought it was always better for people to pay for their crimes in this world rather than in the afterlife. After meditating this matter, Sharon took a step forward and Kay followed behind. And the pair came to talk to one of the ladies who was dressed, and Kay said to her, "We want to see Holly." "Holly's not seeing anyone today, or tomorrow for that matter, and at this rate she will be sent back to the mines," said the lady. "Whatever do you mean?" asked Kay. "Well, if you had bothered to read our brochure, you would know that the Workhouse is still technically a prison. A dolled-out prison, but a prison nonetheless, honey," said the lady. "Still, we must see her," insisted Kay. "Fine, I will inquire, but I make no promises," said the lady. The lady was known as Brooms, and she had not committed any crimes, rather she acted as a snitch along with some other maidens, and they played pretend and acted in ceremonies, but they got to go home every so often while the rest rotted away. And these maidens were known unto each other based on their names, and the true criminals had flowers with, while the snitches had weed code names. You know, like the one was grass and the other one was Bermuda, you know, or dandelion or something. The interior was quite luminous, with a large audience and banquet halls, and tables and cushions and foods and carpets. The patrons were dressed elegantly based on the fashion of the day, and the convicts wore flowers themed after their names, and on the center there was a round table with the main convict performers. And the time you spent in the warehouse did not determine the day of your release. Rather, it was based on the number of times you worked and the nature of the service you provided. And those who did the public performance got off faster. And while a normal prison sentence could last 20 years, those on the stage were allowed to go home at least 2 years, assuming that they perform every day. And those who graduated from the Workhouse were still exiled from society, and those in the other houses were given a chance to rejoin decent society. Still, even those exiles did not leave with an empty hands, and the tricks they learned in the Workhouse could service them in the future. Exile in society was a bit different than in other holds, and while those exiles were unceremoniously kicked out of the hold, the people in society took time to transport the convicts to another part of the continent. And depending on their behavior and signs of repentance, they would be taken to other cities, and now they were their problem. And some were even given startup money and a pair of clothing. And those that were not particularly well liked were shipped up north as far from the continent as possible. And from time to time, some whose crimes were too gruesome were unceremoniously executed during the transport, but never within society. Those executions were illegal, and it was more often than not that the handiwork of dear old Sir Ladarius, but that is another story for another time. And needless to say, he did not like the idea of workhouses. For him they felt like a type of reward instead of a punishment to evildoers. If it was up to him, all criminals should be used in the mines, especially the murderers. And after getting this useful bit of information, Chalon could not help but utter the sound, And nobody around him noticed that he had made a sound, and not even Chalon noticed, and he was just a little disappointed by Sir Ladarius' other side activities. And the lady guided them upstairs, and it was surrounded by a gate from either side, and it was also so skinny that only one person could pass at a time, and this made it easier to corral the prisoners when going upstairs. And to masquerade this, the gates and bars were ornamental with figures of roses and dragons. And on the second floor, the corridors widened a bit. Still, there was only room enough for 4 people to walk, and its door was made of silver, and it had 5 locks. And a little window could be opened on the door to look on the inside. Still, the preferred method of observation was through the paintings, and in the middle of every room there was the 5th hidden room, and one could only get at those rooms from the attic, and from this narrow room the guards could keep an eye on their charges. And as far as paranoia went, the matron who had designed this house was full of it. It had originally been a mansion of someone of the Imperia kind, and she had designed this house in such a way as to keep tabs on all of her family members, and from the attic she could get to the small hidden rooms to eavesdrop on them. And after her death, the rooms were made even smaller, and the bars and locks were added. And this mansion just seemed like the ideal home to be turned into a red prison workhouse. And the hallway in the second room had a red and black wallpaper, and the mansion itself was red with white windows and doors and columns, and the roof was a mansard style, with small windows looking to the exterior. And there was no obvious stairs that led to the attic. Rather, the main stair that led to the attic could only be found in the basement of all places. And in addition to all of these weird niceties, it was said that this house was haunted. Time, bro?
A minute.
Indeed it was, and from time to time the eye of Liza Imperia could be seen peeping through the peepholes behind the curtains and all the usual places shouldn't like to hide. And aside from her, we observers also haunt all of the workhouses, and would have been here today, but it was said that something interesting was going down in the blue workhouse, so our main work staff was elsewhere. Chronicling the bases that the workhouse is always surefire way of making a quick buck or two in the universe. Anyway, after walking in these corridors surrounded by silver doors and creepy paintings, the Lady Bronze guided Chalon and K-Stop, and she thought a moment and said, "Is this a family business or a pleasure meeting?" "Neither. We just need some clarification," said Kay. "Whatever do you mean?" asked the Bronze. "We simply just want to ask her a question," said Kay. The ghost of gossiping light stared behind a curtain near a window and at the end of the hallway, and Chalon walked slowly towards it while pretending to look at the paintings, and he wrote something down on his board. And meanwhile Kay was talking to Bronze, and she was attempting to avoid answering why she truly wanted to see lights, and truth be told, the lady had every reason to suddenly worry. And it was not too uncommon for courtesans to get murdered by these grunted clients, and the only way to avoid this was to carefully vet each visitor and make certain that they were unharmed. And with the pair preoccupied as thus, Chalon felt easy enough to lift the curtain and show his chalkboard to the ghost. The chalkboard read, "I see you." Alarmed, Lice yelled and tried to pass through the window to head outdoors, and Chalon detained her by grabbing her spirit cloak. And he stretched a portion of his soul outside his body to speak to Lice, and using his spirit body, he said, "Look, I just want to talk. Relax, see, I am see-through, just like you." Lice looked at Chalon's spirit and at his body, and in his fragmented soul form he had the same energy as a flea. And those who had the spirit of a flea tended to be quite bloodthirsty. And it is for this reason that we segment spirits, not bodies, but by nature. And like Lice, Chalon had quite a long spirit cloak, and the cloak was a spiritual manifestation of one's willpower. And the robes, since they were of a magical nature, also had an astral body. And as for Lice, her willpower manifested for her robes of the finest silk with pearls and diamonds. And for those who could see, she glistened with a radiance like the morning sun. And Lice saw herself like a 15-year-old girl from yonder times, with a round face, large expressive gray eyes, and curly hair, and the color of midnight. Lice said, "Now this is backwards. I haven't in long, but I've just forgotten. But where are my manners? And would you like some tea?" Her spirit manifested an entire tea set with chairs and everything. And Chalon sat down and he accepted her offer, and he drank tea from her spiritual tea, and his soul was nourished by this exchange. After he drank tea with her, he said, "It is a little bitter with a slight hint of lemons, and will do just fine, thank you. So what brings you to my humble estate?" asked Lice. Not as in liar, as in L-A-I-S.
I was about to ask.
Or lays, I don't know, whatever. "Do you keep track of all of the comings and goings of this mansion?" asked Chalon. "No, a lady such as I would not stoop so low as to spy or even dare to gossip," said Lice, giggling. "What of your chambermaid? Has she heard something interesting?" asked Chalon. "Tessa has been in many places and seen many things, but aside from that shadow, the subjects she brings are too mundane for me to pay any serious attention," said Lice coolly. "Has Tess told you anything about Holly?" asked Chalon. Holly. "Oh, you mean the new scullery maid, a bit of a dour puss, and she tends to spend her entire time flirting with that foreign boy, and I would not be surprised if one day he scoots her away, and we never hear from her. And unlike the other girls, she goes out to explore the city from time to time, even though she's not supposed to." "How does she get out?" asked Chalon. "Through the floorboard. When her father was small, he liked to crawl through narrow spots, though there was and nooks and crevices, and in his old age, he still liked to engage in this hobby, and from time to time he likes to give people quite the fright. So silly, my dear father," said Lice added, and he showed Holly the secret entrance in her room in exchange of seeing her giggle a little, her candle mine. And Chalon thought a moment, trying to make sense of what she was saying, and then he said, "I I see. So how far out of the house do your father's tunnels lead? So like one of the ghosts told the prisoner girl there was another hidden passage that not even the wardens knew about. Or because she amused the ghost person. Time, bro?
2 minutes, 30 seconds.
Just out to the horse stable, and from there you just push down on one of the bars and the gate opens, and then you enter the street through a little duster covered in spiders, explained Lies. Chalon flew in the direction of the stables, and there were just 2 horses and a carriage, and it was mainly used to bring supplies and new prisoners into the workhouse, and there was a solid stone path that led to the main house and back. And after putting his head in, he saw that it was indeed hollow, and crawling through this hole was Liza's father, and his eyes glistened like diamonds in the darkness. As he walked, he contorted his frame, and he said to Chalon, "Look, Dad, I am a wagon wheel." And like a wagon wheel, he rode through his little tunnel, and on top of Chalon, he heard the horses stir nervously. And after getting this look about, Chalon returned to Lies, and then he said, "I should be getting back, and thank you for the tea." "You're welcome," said Lies. And when Chalon returned to his body, Kate was poking him on the shoulder, and Lady Bronze was passing her hand in front of Chalon's face, and she asked Kate, "Is your friend always like this?" "He spaces out like that from time to time," explained Kate. "He could not be possessed, could he?" asked Bronze, worried. "Why would possession be a thing here? Does it occur often?" asked Kate. "I don't know. The women talk, and one can't help but worry, and some say that at night they wake up because someone was licking their belly button. And it is something a little too weird and specific for it to be made up, or to just be a dream," said Bronze more to herself. "Well, this is what to be expected if one lives in a haunted mansion," said Kate, and she added, "and if you train yourself, you can start perceiving the supernatural, and you can also avoid nightmares to boot." "And pray do tell me, how do you train for that?" asked Bronze in disbelief. Alright, let's end it here. Bye-bye.